Champ, sis, y'all better sit down and lock the door, because tonight the pillow is not for comfort. Tonight the pillow is for holding on. Whispers around the block say Papoose. Yes, that Papoose. The man who has spent damn near 2 decades hiding behind 2 of the most powerful women in hip-hop is about to get autopsied on tape, on paper, and on a police dispatch line that TMZ allegedly buried before the ink dried. And baby, if the audio that a woman on Mr. Skinny TV swore she filled out actual paperwork to listen to is real, then everything you thought you knew about Papoose, about Claressa Shields, about that fairy tale ring, about that Queen and King Instagram fantasy they've been reselling to y'all for 2 years straight. Every last drop of it is about to detonate in slow motion in front of a global audience that will never look at Papoose the same way again. So grab your pillow, pull up your chair, turn the volume all the way up, because this is not another 50 Cent trolling arc. This is not another Instagram back and forth. This is the full surgical autopsy of a man who was carried by Remy Ma, who is now allegedly being carried by Claressa Shields, and who, according to a growing chorus of receipts, callers, ex-wives, world champions, and one very persistent Curtis Jackson, keeps ending up in the exact same room every single time a woman in his life gets too loud, too rich, too visible, or too close to the door marked exit. Anyhow, sis, let me lay the map down for the ones just tuning in, because the story that broke on New Year's Day 2026 did not fall out of the sky. It did not appear from nowhere. It started, like most 50 Cent wars start, with one little Instagram poke. A jab, a caption, the kind of quiet needle Curtis Jackson drops just to see whose skin is thin enough to twitch. And Papoose, in his own words, on his own interview, said 50 has been jabbing him for years. Papoose said he ignored the first jab. Papoose said he ignored the second jab. And on the third pass, Papoose said the ignoring was over. Papoose picked up the pen. Papoose picked up a Minuteman instrumental. And Papoose came at Curtis Jackson with bars so surgical that even 50 Cent, the man who has watched every rapper in the culture try and fail, had to quietly admit the craftsmanship was real. Papoose rapped about ugly G-Unit sneakers. Papoose rapped about the party where Diddy allegedly hit 50's girlfriend and the neighbors heard the slap through the wall. Papoose rapped about how get rich or die trying was the last thing 50 ever made that mattered. And Papoose closed with a line about Bernie Mac so nasty even the loyal fans winced. That was a real strike. In a normal universe, that strike earns Papoose respect and everybody moves on. But this is not a normal universe. This is 50 Cent's universe. And in 50 Cent's universe, the moment you throw a bar at Curtis Jackson, he does not swing back with a diss track. He swings back with a filing cabinet. He opens the drawer marked your name and starts pulling out every skeleton every rapper has ever quietly left in his walk-in closet. Hold up, because this is where the story stops being about Papoose alone. This is where the story becomes about a woman named Claressa Shields, arguably the greatest female boxer this country has ever produced, a 2-time Olympic gold medalist, a 3-division world champion, a woman from Flint, Michigan who fought her way out of poverty with nothing but 2 hands and a nightmare-level work ethic. And somehow, she is the one who ended up standing in the middle of the ring alone. Because when 50 Cent came back around on New Year's Day 2026, 50 did not just repost a Papoose joke. 50 posted something disrespectful about Papoose and Claressa in the same breath. And Papoose said the phone started blowing up before his coffee even finished brewing. Papoose said he told Claressa, "Baby, you in training camp. Focus. I got it. Man to man. Let me handle it." And Claressa said no. Claressa said, "I'm going to handle it too." And champ, that right there, that single sentence, that one refusal to let her man handle a man's beef the way a man's beef is traditionally handled, is the exact hinge on which this entire disaster started to swing. Because the moment Claressa Shields opened her mouth to Curtis Jackson, she opened a door that Curtis Jackson had been quietly standing at for years, patiently waiting. And 50 didn't just walk through that door. 50 kicked it clean off the hinges. And matter of fact, before 50 even had to lift a finger himself, a man named Maserati Bert walked through it first with a camera in one hand and a phone in the other. Now peep this, because Maserati Bert is the name that meant nothing to any of us 6 months ago, and is suddenly sitting on what looks like a full library of footage of Claressa Shields. Claressa and Maserati Bert in the shower. Claressa and Maserati Bert in the car. Claressa on the phone with Papoose while Maserati Bert quietly filmed her from across his own living room. Claressa singing. Claressa dancing. Claressa moving around Maserati Bert's space in pajamas the way no fan ever moves around a stranger's house. Because let's be real, champ, no man alive lets a woman he calls a fan bounce around his living room in her pajamas while she takes phone calls from her fiancé in the other room. That is not how fans behave. That is not how visitors behave. That is not how neighbors behave. That is how something else behaves entirely. And Maserati Bert said, plain, on camera, stop playing with me. I've got more where that came from. Claressa denied it. Claressa said she had never been romantic, sexual, nothing, with this man. Never kissed him. Never hugged him too hard. And Claressa said Curtis Jackson was about to be sued into the ground for defamation. Except, come to find out, Claressa never actually filed. That lawsuit never happened. That threat evaporated the second 50 kept posting. Evaporated the second Maserati Bert kept dripping. Evaporated the second the receipts kept stacking like plates in a busy kitchen. And that is a pattern y'all are going to want to remember. Because Claressa Shields threatens legal action the way most people threaten to block somebody on Instagram. A lot of talking. Very little paperwork. But this is where the story cracks wide open and stops being about 50 Cent altogether. Because you cannot understand what is happening to Claressa Shields tonight without first understanding what happened to Remy Ma yesterday. And you cannot understand what happened to Remy Ma without understanding the exact man who has now attached himself, ring and all, to Claressa Shields' career, her calendar, her checkbook, and her championship belts. Whispers around the block say Papoose has a habit. Whispers around the block say Papoose has a rhythm. Whispers around the block say Papoose has a script he keeps running. And whispers around the block say the reason Papoose keeps ending up on the arm of women who out-earn him, outshine him, and outcarry him is because Papoose knows exactly how to find a woman whose light is bright enough to hide his own darkness inside of. And I already know some of y'all are reaching for the comment box to fight me on that sentence. Save it. Because we are about to walk through every single receipt, one by one, layer by layer, brick by brick, and by the time we finish, you are going to have to reach for a very different kind of comment. So peep this. Remy Ma, on her own social media, in her own words, in her own voice. Not a blog, not a fan account, not a Reddit thread, not a burner. Remy Ma looked into her own camera on her own timeline and said, play with the police, Papoose. You forgot the pool never got finished being remodeled because you were attacking me in a garage and the workers on the property called the cops to get you off of me. Alleged. Y'all alleged. But those are Remy's words. Not mine. Remy Ma, the woman who did 6 calendar years inside a New York State prison and never once flinched. The woman who has stared down bigger operators than Papoose could dream about on his best day. That woman went on the internet and said the father of her child, the man she had been carrying financially, physically, and reputationally for over a decade, had to be dragged off of her by a construction crew doing pool work. And what did Papoose do? He shifted the topic. He talked about the divorce paperwork. He talked about the split. He talked about the money. He talked about anything that was not a garage. But not one time, not one single time, did Papoose look into a camera and say plainly, unambiguously on the record, I have never put my hands on that woman. And silence, in the court of public opinion, is a form of confession all its own. Hold on. Because there is a woman who called into Mr. Skinny TV back in May of this year and said something that has been rattling around in my head ever since it hit my feed. She said there exists a police dispatch call, allegedly recorded during that same Remy Ma incident, that plainly captures Papoose being pulled off of Remy by the same workers Remy referenced. She said she personally, individually, physically filled out the paperwork to obtain that dispatch record. She said she heard it with her own 2 ears. She said TMZ had it posted for less than 24 hours before somebody, somewhere, with enough money and enough leverage, made it disappear from the internet permanently. She said Harvey Levin. Yes, that Harvey Levin. The man who built an entire media empire on refusing to post material without verification, allegedly had that clip live long enough for insiders to see it and archive it before it was scrubbed off the site with a level of urgency that only lawyers can produce. Now, do I personally have that dispatch audio in my pocket right now? Honestly, no. And I refuse to sit here and swear I heard something with my own ears when I did not. That is not how this pillow operates. I looked. I searched. I dug through every archive, every screenshot dump, every corner of the internet where a clip like that could hide, every Wayback Machine snapshot I could locate, and I could not surface that audio. Which means one of two things. Either that caller was lying, spinning fan fiction that just happens to line up seamlessly with everything Remy Ma has ever publicly said, or that caller was telling the God-honest truth, and somebody with real leverage buried the audio before it could root. Both are possibilities. Both are on the table. And I will not tell y'all which one is real because I do not know. But what I can tell you, from a lifetime of watching how the internet actually functions, is that when a story goes viral, screenshots survive. Reposts survive. Archives survive. Nothing on the internet dies unless somebody with a very big checkbook kills it deliberately. And if that TMZ post was ever real, its total disappearance may be the loudest evidence in this entire story. Come to find out, that same caller pivoted. She started talking about Claressa being a pimp. She started talking about Claressa being a gangster. She started running her mouth about 7 different topics at once with the kind of scattershot delivery that makes even honest people sound like liars in a courtroom. And that raised my eyebrows, sis. Because a person telling a true story of that magnitude does not need to embellish. They stay locked on the bombshell they have and let the bombshell do the talking. This caller did the opposite. So maybe she was lying. Maybe she was performing. Maybe she was clout chasing. All possible. But here is what is not possible to wave away. Her core claim about Remy Ma, the garage, the workers, the dispatch call, is corroborated by Remy Ma's own words on Remy Ma's own platforms. And Papoose, in his own defining silence, has never denied it in the years since it went public. So peep this, because this is where 50 Cent's true genius shows itself. 50 Cent did not attack Papoose randomly. 50 Cent attacked Papoose because Papoose attacked first. And when Papoose came ugly. Papoose came for the Diddy party. Papoose came for the neighbors. Papoose came for the G-Unit era. Papoose came at bars that directly implicated the entire industry. 50 Cent has spent a decade positioning himself as the last honest voice inside of. And 50 did the only thing 50 Cent knows how to do when a rival gets too close to the machinery. 50 mapped the terrain. 50 identified the weakest structural link in Papoose's kingdom, Claressa's proximity to a man named Maserati Bert, and 50 detonated it live on the timeline. That is not trolling. That is not clownery. That is generational warfare. That is a man who has watched every hip-hop beef of the last 20 years, taken notes, and reverse-engineered the exact algorithm for annihilating a rapper without ever recording a single diss track. 50 Cent does not need to rap anymore. 50 Cent has terminally weaponized the repost button. Matter of fact, this is the part almost every commentator in this entire cycle has missed entirely. 50 Cent is not the villain in this story. 50 Cent is the accelerant. 50 Cent is the match. 50 Cent is the wind that fanned the flame. The villain, if there is one, is the pattern itself. The pattern of Papoose attaching himself, quietly, patiently, expertly, professionally, to women whose careers dwarf his own, sitting quietly in the passenger seat while they drive, collecting the benefits, enjoying the shine, wearing the ring, and then, allegedly, allegedly, turning volatile the moment those women assert independence, wealth, autonomy, or a life outside of him. Remy asserted independence. Remy allegedly caught hands in a garage. Claressa is asserting independence right now, tonight, on live camera, in front of the whole internet, in real time. And according to that same caller nobody can fully verify, Claressa is allegedly catching hands too. Now, I said allegedly. Twice. Because I mean it. And I will keep saying it because the law requires me to. But that is not a coincidence. That is a rhythm. And rhythms don't lie, champ. Rhythms never lie. Now hold up, because I want y'all to sit with something for a second. Because there is a concept we're going to need if we're going to understand what is really happening inside that house. There is a body of research in the academic literature. Sociologists call it precarious manhood theory. And the idea is simple enough to fit on a napkin. Womanhood, according to the research, is generally treated as a permanent state. You are born a woman. You exist as a woman. Society does not require you to keep proving it every 20 minutes. But manhood, according to the same body of research, is treated as something a man has to earn every single day, defend every single week, prove every single month, and re-earn every single year until the day he dies. And when a man senses his manhood is being publicly threatened, when his wife pays every bill, when his fiancé is a world champion, when his stepdaughter watches him fold laundry while a rival drops a viral diss aimed straight at his ribs, that man enters what researchers call precarious manhood panic. Some men rise to the challenge, humble themselves, and find peace in a non-traditional role. Beautiful outcome, rare outcome, endangered outcome. But other men lash out. Other men grip tighter. Other men, when they cannot dominate a checking account, try to dominate the woman signing the check. Alleged. Y'all alleged. But that is the exact structural pattern the research keeps documenting decade after decade. Sis, this is where we come back to Claressa Shields. Because Claressa Shields is the exact type of woman a precarious manhood panicked man attaches himself to like a barnacle attaches itself to a moving ship. Claressa is a champion. Claressa is loud. Claressa is rich. Claressa is stubborn. Claressa is famous. Claressa is a woman who, by her own admission, does not listen. Not to her manager. Not to her team. Not to her PR people. not to her lawyer, not to Papoose himself. And when Papoose sat in that interview and looked into the lens with the tired, hollow eyes of a man who has had this same argument in a different decade with a different woman leading to a different disaster, and he said, I told her to ignore it. I told her to focus on training. I told her I got it. Let me handle it. Man to man. And then Claressa still went online swinging at 50 Cent anyway. Papoose was not just watching a partner make a mistake. Papoose was watching history repeat itself in real time. Now peep this, because this is the moment Papoose accidentally showed his whole hand. When 50 Cent posted that AI-generated clip of Papoose and Claressa's faces stitched onto the 1976 blaxploitation film MMA, Black Sister's Revenge, Papoose in his own interview said something extremely revealing. Papoose said, he didn't even make that. He reposted it. But because he reposted it, everybody blames him. And in that one sentence, Papoose accidentally described his entire career strategy. Because that is the exact excuse Papoose has been running his whole life. Somebody else did it. Somebody else said it. Somebody else made it. But I'm the one catching the blame. It's the excuse he used when Remy said he never paid rent. It's the excuse he used when the divorce paperwork started making rounds. It's the excuse he is using tonight as Maserati Bert releases footage Papoose himself cannot explain. Somebody else. Somebody else. Always somebody else. Never Papoose. Anyhow, sis, let me take y'all back a couple of years because this pattern has receipts stacked higher than most people realize. Remy Ma, on her own show, on national television, admitted publicly that she paid every single bill in that household. Every one. Remy paid the mortgage. Remy paid the cars. Remy paid the vacations. Remy paid the child care. Remy paid the studio time. And baby, listen, Remy bought her own push gift after giving birth to their child. Say that with me one more time. Remy Ma bought her own push gift. A woman came home from a hospital holding a newborn baby and had to reach into her own bank account to purchase the gift her husband was traditionally supposed to give her as thanks for carrying his child for 9 months. And Papoose has never denied that either. Papoose has never once said, actually, I was the provider. Papoose has never once produced a receipt showing he paid a mortgage note, a car note, a light bill, a diaper bill. Not one. Not one time. And when a man's entire adult lifestyle is built on the back of a woman who could technically evict him with a single phone call, that man does one of two things. He either humbles himself and appreciates every crumb she chooses to feed him, or he starts hunting for other places to feel powerful. And when a man cannot feel powerful in his wallet, some of them start trying to feel powerful in their fists. Alleged. Y'all alleged. But every psychologist worth their license will tell you the same truth. The most dangerous man on the planet is not the man with all the power. The most dangerous man on the planet is the man who feels like he has none and is desperate to take it back by any means necessary. Now peep this, because it gets worse. When 50 Cent said the words that lit the fuse all over again 5 days ago, nah man, that mother handsome, she looked like AB. That single line is what pulled Claressa Shields back into the ring. And she came swinging without a mouthguard. And that swing is why we are here tonight breaking this whole story down. Because when a champion swings without her corner in position, she doesn't win the round. She trades. And Claressa is trading punches she did not need to trade with a man who does not need to hit her back to hurt her. Curtis Jackson doesn't need to land a punch on Claressa Shields. Curtis Jackson needs Claressa Shields to keep punching air while he calmly reposts the footage that ends her endorsement deals one at a time. Hold up. Because Maserati Bert, according to Claressa's own words, on her own camera, was, and I quote directly, a fan. He came up to her at an event. He asked for a picture. And then, in her own phrasing, in her own voice, on her own timeline, he went from there to somewhere else. Champ, read that back. That single phrase, went from there to somewhere else, is the linguistic equivalent of a woman quietly admitting yes, something happened. But no, I don't want to say what happened out loud on camera. Because if a man is truly, definitively, only ever a fan, he does not go from there to somewhere else. He stays a fan. He remains a fan. He is filed under fan and never refiled under anything else. But Claressa's own words tell a different filing story. And Maserati Bert's own footage tells a different filing story. And Papoose's tired, hollow, hooded eyes in his own interview tell yet another filing story. And when 3 separate filing stories all point to the same folder in the same cabinet in the same room, sis, you don't need a receipt anymore. You already have the invoice. You already have the itemized bill. You already have the delivery confirmation. Sis, this is where the layers really start peeling all the way back. Because there is a caller, the same caller from Mr. Skinny TV, who back on May 30th of this year said something I have not been able to shake loose from my brain since the second I heard it. She said there is footage coming of Papoose putting hands on Claressa. Just said it. Plain. Clear. No hedge. No softening. No qualifying. Now, has that footage dropped? Not yet. And maybe it never will. Maybe the woman was lying. Maybe she was performing. Maybe she was chasing views. Maybe she was working for somebody who wanted the story planted. Every one of those possibilities is on the table tonight. But here is what is not on the table. Here is what is a hard, cold, documented, undeniable fact you cannot argue with in any comment section on any platform. Claressa Shields is a woman with more championship belts than 99% of the men in her weight class have title shots. And yet, when 50 Cent started coming at her, when Maserati Bert started dripping footage, when the internet started laughing loud enough to be heard from 3 states away, Claressa Shields never once, not one single time, looked or sounded like a woman being protected by the man wearing her ring. She sounded like a woman defending herself. Alone. On her own timeline. Without backup. Without cornerman. And that, champ, is the loudest silence Papoose has ever made in his entire recorded career. Now back up with me for one more minute, because I need y'all to sit with the full weight of this before we keep moving. Papoose, before he was Mr. Claressa Shields, was Mr. Remy Ma. And I do not say Mr. Remy Ma as a compliment. I say it as a demographic classification. I say it as a job title. I say it as an economic filing. Because for the entirety of that marriage, in Remy Ma's own words, on her own reality show, on her own social media, in her own interviews, in her own memoir-adjacent podcast conversations, Papoose was the passenger. Remy drove. Remy paid. Remy carried. Remy fought. Remy bled. And now, watching Claressa Shields do the exact same driving, the exact same paying, the exact same carrying, the exact same fighting alone on the internet, you cannot pretend the picture is different. You are watching the same movie with the same script and a different leading actress. And I know some of y'all are typing in the comments right now that I am reaching. Save the typing. Because Andre Dirrell said what he said out loud. Matter of fact, let's talk about Andre Dirrell too. Because Andre Dirrell, a former world champion boxer, a man who has actually stood in a ring with the kind of weight Claressa's career demands, a man whose career overlapped with Claressa's at the very highest level of professional boxing, Andre Dirrell publicly said, quote, "When she was Drake, when she was a real man, that goes out to Papoose." Champ, read that sentence twice. Read that sentence 3 times if you need to. Because that is not a gossip blogger. That is not a call-in caller. That is not an anonymous DM. That is not a burner account. That is a legend in Claressa's own weight of the sport, on the record, saying the quiet part loud on his own platform. Andre Dirrell is telling the truth about Papoose in language pointed enough to draw actual blood. And when the professionals in a subject's own industry, the peers who train alongside her, who share promoters, who share commentators, who share Olympic history, start speaking, the smoke stops being smoke and starts being the outline of a fire nobody in the building is willing to name out loud. Sis, this next part is the part that is going to piss some of y'all off. So take a breath. Roll your shoulders. Come back to me. Because the same exact dynamic that trapped Remy Ma is playing out in Claressa's kitchen tonight, live, on camera, in real time. Claressa is training. Claressa is fighting. Claressa is promoting. Claressa is monetizing. Claressa is building brands. Claressa is signing endorsements. And Papoose is where Papoose has always been, in the background, occasionally posting, occasionally interviewing, occasionally reminding the world that he still exists somewhere in the frame. And when 50 Cent showed up on New Year's Day 2026 with his little Instagram grenade in his hand, Papoose did what Papoose has always done in a public crisis. He tried to control the narrative from the sidelines. And Claressa, being loud, being independent, being a champion, being a woman who has fought her way out of Flint, Michigan, and into 3 world titles, refused to be controlled from any sideline by anybody. And that refusal, champ, is going to cost her more than any of us currently understand tonight. Now peep this, because most people miss this detail entirely, and I need it on record. The divorce between Papoose and Remy Ma is still, technically, on paper, in the courthouse, not finalized. Papoose is engaged to Claressa Shields. But Papoose is not yet legally free from Remy Ma. Read that twice. Papoose is engaged to a woman while he is still legally married to another woman. And Remy, whether people want to sit with it or not, is still holding the receipts of an entire era of Papoose's life that Claressa Shields apparently never bothered to review before she said yes to the ring. Because if Claressa had reviewed those receipts, if Claressa had watched the interviews, if Claressa had read the deposition-adjacent leaks, if Claressa had listened to Remy's own words on Remy's own platforms and Remy's own voice, Claressa would not be in the position she is in tonight. Claressa would have known that a man with this many alleged patterns does not simply stop patterning because a new woman shows up with a new bank account. A pattern is a pattern precisely because it repeats, and repetition is the only prophecy that ever comes true in a courtroom. Hold on, because I want to be really careful right here for the record. There is a real difference between exposing a documented abuser and speculating about a man's private life based on a caller nobody can verify with a badge. And I refuse to be the pillow that says something I cannot back with my own 2 eyes and my own 2 ears and my own 2 hands. But what I can back tonight is this. Remy Ma's own words on Remy Ma's own platforms. Papoose's own silence in Papoose's own interviews. Maserati Bert's own footage on Maserati Bert's own timeline. 50 Cent's own screenshots on 50 Cent's own page. Andre Dirrell's own commentary from Andre Dirrell's own mouth. In a pattern that has been repeating in plain sight for close to 2 decades while everybody around it politely, professionally, financially looked the other way and cashed their checks. That is not smoke, sis. That is not rumor. That is not gossip. That is architecture. Sis, the last thing I want to leave you with is this, because it will haunt you if you let it. There was another caller. A caller on the Hood Champion show. A caller who was ostensibly on the phone to spill tea about something entirely unrelated to Claressa Shields, who could not stop redirecting the conversation back to Claressa being a pimp, Claressa being a gangster, Claressa doing this, Claressa doing that, Claressa doing the other. She could not stay on topic to save her life. And the host of Hood Champion, live on air, wore the exact same face of confusion the host of Mr. Skinny TV wore when his own caller pulled the same exact maneuver on his exact same platform. Sis, that is not coincidence. That is not 2 random events. That is a coordinated smear campaign. And it is being run by somebody who wants Claressa Shields dragged through as many mud puddles as humanly possible before her next fight, before her next payday, before her next endorsement negotiation, before her next promo run. Somebody is pulling the strings from behind a curtain. And I have some very educated guesses about who that somebody might be. But I will not say the name out loud tonight because I do not have paperwork, and I refuse to be the person who accuses somebody of something I cannot prove in a courtroom under oath. But here is what I can prove, on record, tonight, in front of God in this timeline. I can prove Papoose has been publicly named in an allegation of physical violence by his own wife, on her own social media, in her own voice, on her own timeline. I can prove 50 Cent has, without question, without dispute, without qualification, embarrassed Papoose in a way Papoose has never publicly recovered from and may never publicly recover from. I can prove Claressa Shields' team is not listening to her, or she is not listening to them, or, most likely, both simultaneously. I can prove Maserati Bert has more footage in his phone tonight than he has posted on the internet all year. I can prove Andre Dirrell said what he said in the language he said it in. And I can prove that the woman on Mr. Skinny TV made the claim she made on the date she made it, whether or not that claim ultimately turns out to be true in a courthouse. So here is the question I need y'all to sit with tonight before you close this tab. Because this is the question that keeps me up at night with the pillow between my hands. If Claressa Shields, the greatest female boxer of her entire generation, a woman with more physical capability than most professional men can dream of on their best day, is truly, quietly, secretly a victim of what that caller alleged on the record, what does that tell us about the machinery of hip-hop? About celebrity? About the power couple branding industry that would let a story like this get buried before daylight even had a chance to hit it? What does it tell us about TMZ? About the blogs? About the platforms? About the podcast circuit? About the very same media ecosystem that broke Cassie's story, that broke Megan's story, that broke every high-profile woman in crisis story of the last 5 years without hesitation? Why is Claressa's story, if it exists, apparently the one they are all refusing to touch with a 10-foot pole? And more importantly, what does it tell us about Papoose himself? A man who, in his own interviews, in his own words, on his own record, has never once, not one single time in his entire public career, looked into a camera and said, unqualified, unhedged, on the record for permanent archive, I have never put my hands on a woman. He has denied specific incidents. He has denied specific dates. He has denied specific paperwork. But he has never made the blanket, unambiguous, unhedged declaration that any man with a clean conscience makes in his sleep without thinking twice. And that omission, champ, that specific, calculated, lawyerly, professionally coached silence, is louder than any diss track Curtis Jackson could ever record in a studio with a lifetime of studio time. Anyhow, sis, I'm going to leave the receipts here for y'all to sort through in the comments. But before you scroll, I need y'all to understand something. This is not about picking a side. This is not about 50 Cent versus Papoose. This is not about Remy versus Claressa. This is about a pattern that has been sitting in plain sight for damn near 2 decades, and the moment 50 Cent decided to point at it with a spotlight, everybody around it started running for the exits with their hands over their faces. That is not the behavior of innocent bystanders. That is the behavior of people who know exactly what is in the closet and are terrified of the door swinging open. So talk to me down below, sis. Talk to me tonight. Do y'all believe the caller on Mr. Skinny TV? Do y'all believe Remy Ma? Do y'all believe Andre Dirrell? Do y'all believe Maserati Bert has more footage tucked away in a folder somewhere? Do y'all believe there is a TMZ post that got buried before the dust could settle on Harvey Levin's desk? And most importantly, tonight, right now, at the exact minute you are hearing my voice, do y'all believe Claressa Shields is safe? Safe in her own house? Safe in her own kitchen? Safe on her own phone? Safe with a man old enough to be her granddaddy and allegedly hot-tempered enough to be dangerous in the wrong quiet moment? Or should Claressa's team pull her out of that engagement, cancel the wedding, restructure the finances, put a lawyer on retainer, and put security on the front door before the next fight card even prints? Which one is it, sis? Because either way, somebody is leaving with a scar that does not heal by morning. Drop your thoughts. Drop your receipts. Drop your prayers. Drop your predictions. But whatever you do not stop watching this story. Because I have a feeling the audio the caller mentioned, the audio TMZ allegedly buried, the audio that a woman said she filed paperwork to hear with her own 2 ears at a public records office. I have a feeling that clip is not going to stay buried forever. Nothing on the internet ever really does stay buried. And the second it surfaces, and it will surface, sis, they always surface eventually. I want y'all right here, in this community, on this pillow, in this comment section.